Hi, I'm Adam Stone. I am the Stone portion of Eyer Stone. We are at the law offices of Eyer Stone, actually in the Neff Law Firm building. It is, I think it's like, is it fucking June 12th yet or something like that?
It's June 16th.
Oh, good. I'm only a few days behind.
Yeah, just whatever.
It's June 16th, and I'm here with my brother Chris. We usually call this 2 beers and 2 lawyers, but it looks like it's 1 lawyer and
a circus monkey.
And no beers for the night. So,
and a circus monkey.
So we're going to spend just a little bit of time, about an hour or so, talking today about, Chris and I had the opportunity to march in downtown Bucyrus for the Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd issue, systemic institutionalized racism, over the course of, what was it, about a half a mile, full mile if you go back.
Full mile if you go, back and forth.
And
yeah.
I got to take my oldest son and my middle son with me on the march, and my middle son's 18 months, so that really wasn't exactly something I'm sure he didn't comprehend. He looked more like Carlos from The Hangover.
He really did. That picture. As I edit this, I'll go back and put the picture of him.
That's fucking
looking
sweet,
like Carlos.
That'll be cool.
So yeah, the things we can do with technology these days.
But my youngest, it was a really neat opportunity to introduce him to just the very basic concepts of peaceful protest, of nonviolence, of your First Amendment right to peacefully assemble. And that those are very complex issues, but for kids, you can break them down very simply and very easily. And using Martin Luther King as a example, and just watching a couple of small short YouTube videos about it, got him pretty excited about marching
right
as a whole, which was neat. And
he was really excited.
He was.
I mean,
it's one of those things that we talked about. No matter what you believe in, you need to believe in it. And if you truly believe in it, then you're willing to get out there in the streets and speak your mind and be a part of something bigger than yourself.
Speak your truth.
Yeah, speak your truth. And that's really, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And you have to be prepared to have that conversation and understand your point of view and be prepared to articulate that point of view. It's more than just chanting and marching up and down the street. You have to have a purpose and a message. And
now, see, let's talk about that for a minute, if we can. I was there taking it in.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Right. It was my first time ever really. Now, granted, I led a march out in high school, but that's neither here nor there. But it was the first time I'd ever participated in a march like that.
Sure.
Right. Very, very organized, a lot of people. And I was taking it all in, because you didn't just have, what I found interesting, a couple things. Number one, you didn't just have the people there who were exercising their First Amendment rights.
Sure.
To freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You also had some folks who were there exercising their Second Amendment rights.
Oh, absolutely.
And to me, it was interesting. I think, if I remember right, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Mom was the one that said she was a little disappointed or disheartened or upset. It bothered her to see them open carrying.
Yeah, and just for the listeners, we of course we were raised in Chris and I were raised in a home where social justice, social conscience, and those were concepts that were pounded into us on a daily basis by a mom who marched and protested and still does to this day. And she was actually with us that day for the march here in town. So just I wanted to make sure that we had some context there.
Right. And so Mom was with us, and the one thing that she had said was she was I think she just didn't like the fact that they were open carrying.
Sure.
And I said, well, Mom, here's the thing I see. If you're going to support the First Amendment of the Constitution, right?
Absolutely.
Then you got to support the Second Amendment. You can't pick and choose which amendments of the Constitution
and
you want to support.
And actually that's literally the foundation of my legal practice, because I don't, from a personal standpoint, I've shot guns since I was old enough to shoot a gun.
Oh, we've shot shotguns and rifles.
Absolutely. We learned to respect firearms not to fear them. But I don't feel the need to have one, to own one. I don't feel the need to carry one. But I also understand it is a constitutional right for people to have that. And I've defended it in court ad nauseum, and I would continue to do so. But you bring up a really good point, Chris, because I was thinking about this, and I've taken a long time and not spoken out with respect to the social justice issue that we were marching for when we were there downtown. And I did that on purpose because when I was in college and in law school, I participated in a lot of demonstrations. Gina 6, when I worked with the Black Panther Party, when I worked with the NAACP, we did a lot of marches for a lot of really great social causes. This one opened up like a huge panacea of issues for me. And it's,
time out. Panacea.
Oh, I'm sorry. It just
like a Pandora's box of issues.
Yeah,
for
a Pandora's
you. Okay.
box of issues for me. And what I really where it started for me was this concept at the 13th Amendment. And I went back actually and I watched the movie Lincoln because it's about the passage of the 13th Amendment abolishing slavery, which, we applaud. Amazing story and incredible feat on behalf of President Lincoln during a time when I think passing that amendment was next to impossible. He pulled it off.
Right.
But one of the things that amendment did that nobody talks about is, yes, it banned slavery, but it created an exception to that ban for people who are incarcerated. And if we look at the overwhelming majority of people incarcerated in this country, they are people of color.
Okay. And I
you see where I'm going?
I do. And I say, I paused when I say okay, because I'm not educated on the incarcerated population of the United States.
Sure, that's fair.
That's not my
understand.
My wheelhouse is what you see here. Like there's a camera over there, there's a camera here, there's this mixer here, there's the iPad.
Right.
This is my wheelhouse, right?
Well, I understand. And
so because I'm not educated on it, I'm not going to
verify
or
asking you.
or opine either way.
Sure. And the interesting...
I'll take your word for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But you have that 13th Amendment, you have that exception. And that exception has, there are some who would argue, I don't, but there are some who would argue that exception has been used to further enslave African American and people of color across this country. And then if you look at George Floyd's situation involving law enforcement and the heinous tragedy that for 8.5 minutes we all witnessed, if we think about it within historical context and we take a step back to try and understand as, white people who in a lot of ways we enjoy the concepts of white privilege. That's just my opinion. I think we're
white males.
Yes,
we are privileged.
Yes, we
enjoy that privilege.
I think if we take a step back and we try to think about it and empathize, law enforcement, the first real police departments, at least that I'm aware of historically, were set up for the purpose of capturing runaway slaves. So if you have this law that abolishes slavery except for people who are incarcerated, and you have this group who their first job, and the group being police, I'm not saying police now, for God's sake, I'm saying police back in the 1800s, who were solely there to capture runaway slaves, you get into a situation where I think you begin to see the powder keg. You begin to see the institutionalization of that racism at its very basic, earliest stages. I think over time, when we have the Jim Crow laws, the enforcement of Jim Crow laws by local law enforcement, you had the federal government having to get involved to try and break down those segregation barriers because local law enforcement wasn't. I mean, you literally begin to see the evolution of what ultimately culminates in 400 or 500 years of oppression, not simply by police, not simply by sheriff's departments or whatever it happens to be, but by a system that was set up to be just in theory, that was set up to be colorblind, that was set up to be equal, but was manipulated by powers that be to something that it wasn't meant to be. And it was neat. I was watching John Oliver on HBO, and at the end of his show, I think it was this last weekend.
Hey, time out. Who's John Oliver?
John Oliver does a talk show on HBO.
Okay.
So
again,
no, you're good.
I don't watch HBO,
it's a news show. But he had this clip of a woman who was trying to explain these riots, and she was explaining that for 400 years we've been kept down. The thing that just stuck with me, and one of the reasons I haven't been able to speak publicly about the George Floyd situation, is she made this brilliant point. People in this country are lucky that we are here to seek equality and not revenge.
We are here to seek equality and not revenge.
Because there's a big damn difference between those two fucking concepts, and you have to
There
admit.
are. And here's, I guess, can I give you my first thought when I hear that?
Absolutely.
My first thought when I hear that is, okay, if you're here to seek equality, take lessons from Dr. King. Just hear me out.
I'm listening.
Okay?
I'm listening.
But, and again, I don't know the looting and the rioting. You hear all this garbage of who really started it and who's really behind it and all this other stuff. To me, if you're seeking equality, then there shouldn't be, if you as a group of people in society, if that's what you're seeking, then do it, take notes from Dr. King. Because Dr. King, I mean, again, I'm not a historian, but what I understand, Dr. King was able to move some pretty big mountains in the short time he had.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So rioting and looting is not going to move mountains. Rioting and looting is just going to piss people off. Especially, and I empathize with the small business owner. Because I used to own a very small business, right? That had that been in a Chicago, or had it been in, a larger metropolitan area, well, case in point, Chicago. There's a wine shop in Chicago that's boarded up, right? I know the owners. I met them. Wonderful people. Remind me of myself, actually. When it comes to the way they treat their customers.
Kidding,
I'm glad that the camera right now is on that shows the back of your head, because that eye roll, I should smack you for it. But it's the way they treated their... It is. It's the way they treated their customers that I watched, and I appreciated, because it was very similar to how I did. But then to see them have to board their shop up because they're worried that their windows are going to get broken out and that all of their inventory is going to get taken, and their life savings is going to go away. What does rioting and looting accomplish? It doesn't accomplish equality.
I don't disagree with you, and I'm only interrupting you.
Sorry, I got on a tangent. I apologize.
That's completely reasonable, but I also want you to take into account the perspective of a group of people who, for 400 years, who started their own family businesses and had groups called the Justice League that would burn their churches, their businesses, their homes, that would string them up on trees. I feel bad. I feel bad for your friends in Chicago. Don't get me wrong. I own a small business right here.
Right, I know.
If this business were somewhere else, it might be on fire.
Right.
But the point is, you know what? I think those people for 400 years have been through a hell of a lot more. And if we put this situation into historical context, even Dr. King, who you referenced early on, who made such great social change through nonviolence, recognized later in his life that the frustration that is taken out through the riot is the voice of those who are unheard, or those who people refuse to hear. If you yell as loud as you can and no one will hear you, eventually you're going to be frustrated to the point where you're going to hurt something.
or someone.
Or someone.
And again, I see what you're saying, Adam, and I just come back, and again, I'm not a historian, right?
Sure.
I don't study that. You've spent a lot in our evolution, if that's the right way to say it, as into adulthood, right? You spent a lot of time studying the Black history and you're talking about 400 years of, because you worked with the Black Panther Party, you worked with the NAACP, so you've engrossed yourself in that. I'm sitting back as someone who didn't, but still understands that when I see something that's wrong, right, that I've got to do something, right? I need, whether I verbalize it or not,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
To me, being at that march was me showing support for the cause of equality.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's really what, like, when I explained it to Elliot, just getting back to that march, we were talking about the fact that we were walking so that everyone gets treated the same. No one person is better than another person. And we were walking for George and his family. Now, I didn't explain to Elliot, he's way too young to know what happened to George Floyd, but I explained that he was hurt and that he's never going to get to see his kids or his wife again, and because someone hurt him for no good reason.
Right.
And he understood that, and he grasped onto the concept that we were supporting family.
Right.
We were looking at George, we were looking at those folks in the streets with us, including law enforcement in our situation.
That was
It was remarkable to see.
I give a lot of kudos to law enforcement.
BPD in that situation.
BPD, the
State Highway Patrol,
the sheriff's office.
It was remarkable to watch them to watch them march with us, and I was really happy to see it. And I think it because we did have a lot of folks from out of town who were here.
There were.
I think it de-escalated having them in the crowd with us, marching with us. I think they did not see law enforcement as oppositional.
But I don't think and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know, Chief Kepke or Lieutenant Dorsey as well as I think I do.
Sure.
But, I think they march not to de-escalate things, but because they wanted to show their support.
That's exactly what I mean.
For the cause. You know what I mean? Like,
by showing support, they de-escalate.
Right.
By showing their support, they were de-escalating the
But I don't think de-escalation ever, like, I'm sure there were conversations about if something erupted, how do we de-escalate it?
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, they're both good men.
Oh, yeah.
They're both, I mean, look, I think the world of Dave Kepke and John Dorsey.
I spent a trial trying to just get something out of Chief. An entire trial trying to get something out of Chief. And that man was as calm as a Xanax the entire time. I mean, he was even. He would not let me get under his skin. He is just a wonderful human being.
He is. And like I said, and John Dorsey.
Oh, great guy.
Great guy.
Yep.
So, to me, again, yes, their presence helped to de-escalate anything. But I don't think in their minds that when they stepped foot in the street and they were marching with us, that was in their head.
Well, it was the same with, like, Tommy Walker was out there marching.
Right, Tommy Walker was out there.
It was great. It was great to see. Sergeant Wright, Commander, I think.
Commander Wright. I was going to say State Trooper. I don't know his rank, but and to see them with the group, I think it showed unity in the community.
It really did. It really did. It was, and not just the community, not just Bucyrus, but all the people who were marching as a community.
Right.
To me in that situation, I was really encouraged by what I saw. I was really happy with what I saw. Now, I had the unfortunate experience of being in Cleveland just like a week before when the riots occurred in downtown Cleveland. I wasn't actually there for the riots. I had picked up my youngest son and his mother and got them out of town, and I saw the marchers coming in. And what was really disheartening Actually, let me take that back. I'm not going to use the word disheartening. That's not fair. It was really moving, Chris, is when I took my son and his mother back to their apartment in downtown Cleveland to pick some stuff up the next day after the riots. And then I was going to drive them out back to Willoughby. I got to see the damage that was done by the riots. I was down Ontario Street there in Cleveland, okay?
Ontario Avenue?
Oh, yeah, Ontario Avenue. I mean, it was tore the fuck up. But you get down there and you get close to the courthouse. And the rioters had spray painted the names of the people, the young men and women who had been killed. They spray painted their names on the county courthouse. This is a big, beautiful, historic courthouse.
I know it is.
It's gorgeous. You've got Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson right there at the front. And you got Trayvon, Eric. I mean, just spray painted there. And I thought, to me, in that situation, I thought that moved me in a way that I hadn't been moved in all of the marches I'd been involved in and all of the... I mean, Chris, I was involved in when a cross was burned in Mount Gilead.
Right. Oh, I remember. How can I forget that?
Yeah, I mean, we had the Klan threatening us at that point. But that was one of those moments where it spoke to something bigger than the courthouse. It spoke to something bigger than the city of Cleveland. It spoke to something. How do you value a child's life? How do you value a father's life? I mean, if you look at George Floyd, 8.5 minutes, what does it speak to his humanity that he cries out for his mother? What does it speak to us that we hear him cry out for his mother? That we hear him cry out that I'm going to die. And we just look on. Because out of fear, we're next. There'll be a knee on my neck too. Would there be a knee on my neck? I'm white. Would there?
Are you asking me to answer that question?
Because it's completely fucking rhetorical, Chris. It's completely rhetorical, but it speaks so loudly to this concept that we as a society have no value left for human life. We see them as disposable to our own ends. Our own ends. I see it in courtrooms all the time. We use people for political gain.
Mm-hmm. People are used for political and personal gain.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We put a price tag or a vote to their life.
Let me ask you this question. So, your son in about 5 years, he's a smart kid. Your oldest.
Oh, yeah.
He's smart as a whip.
Yeah.
So, in about 5 years, he's going to be, I think he's going to be along the lines of my daughter.
Yeah.
As he grows up.
In terms of maturity?
Mature.
Yeah, definitely.
And intelligence.
Yep.
Okay. So, how, and again, this is just me because I've not had the chance to have these conversations with my kids who are a teenager and preteen yet.
Yeah.
So how are you going to explain to your son that what you saw in Cleveland, right? Because he's going to see pictures. Adam, I really hope that out of this, we don't stop having the conversations about equality.
That's why we're having this conversation now.
But what I'm saying is in 5 years...
begged before she died that we never stop talking about these things.
So, but here's my thing. The national... We're going to always talk about it because we, you and I... were raised that no one's better than anyone else.
Yeah.
We all put our pants on the same way.
Yep.
One leg at a time.
Yep.
Right? And it doesn't matter whether you wear Gucci or Levi or Walmart brand. You're still damn human.
It's all going to end the same way.
Right. We all come in the same way. We're all going out the same way.
Blind, naked, and covered in our own shit.
Exactly. But how are you? Because it sounded to me, and maybe I misunderstood listening to you, and if I did,
I'll fucking tell you.
I know you will. How are you going to tell your son, your oldest, that you thought it was okay for them to deface public property? When right, that is considered unlawful.
Absolutely.
And that, I guess that, because to me, I would, if my kids said, Dad, why is that okay? I would tell them, it's not okay.
Sure.
I don't care what anybody tells you. That is not okay to deface. So how do you, I want to know how you would explain that.
I would take it to a level. I take it to a level of history. I look at a group called the Catonsville Nine. They were a group of mostly Catholic priests and nuns who were protesting the Vietnam War. And they basically raided a draft office, federal crime, took all of the draft cards, pulled them out, took them out in the front yard of wherever the hell they were in Maryland, and lit them on fire and started praying and singing until they were arrested. Was that illegal? Absolutely. Did it destroy, was it a federal crime? Were they destroying someone else's property? Yes. But in trial, when they wheeled in the ashes of the draft cards, the one defendant, Philip Berrigan, stood up and said, better the ashes of draft cards than you wheel in the ashes of children. So yes, defacing property, defacing a courthouse is absolutely a crime. But you have to look at someone's intent. I'm not going to encourage them to ever commit a crime or ever do anything of that nature, but there comes a time. You think about those folks who on Bloody Sunday marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. A judge had told them, you shall not march across that bridge. And they left the church and they walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and when they kneeled to pray, they were attacked by state highway patrolmen. They just knelt to pray. What they did was illegal. Their actions were illegal. But what is it that they were trying to accomplish and commit? And by the way, the guy who led that march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, he's Senator John Lewis from the great state of Georgia.
Right.
Okay? So don't tell me that because he went to jail 40 plus times, he can't, be something.
Right. No, and I'm not. I like I said, you look at it from a more historical perspective.
I
right?
do.
And I look at it, and maybe this is Chuck Stone coming out in me.
Sure.
Right? That I look at it from a practical.
You see it as a very black and white issue.
I do. However, I think if you really want, again, this is me thinking. So you want to memorialize, you want to bring attention to, the names that you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. There's got to be a better way of doing it than putting spray paint on the side of the courthouse.
Chris, they've tried. How many times do you just see LeBron James wearing a shirt that says, I can't breathe? Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, in a shirt that says, I can't breathe. How much more Colin Kaepernick kneeling? And you had motherfuckers in the streets, ready to light him on fire because he was disrespecting the flag. He was telling you, this is my peaceful protest. Ed Reed telling you, this is our peaceful protest.
Right.
And you wouldn't listen. Not you, but society wouldn't fucking listen. All they saw was disrespect for the flag. And here's the thing. It wasn't disrespect for the flag. It was never about disrespecting the flag. It was always about police brutality. It was always about that. It was never a co-opted message. And instead of like Muhammad Ali, where they took his belt, they did something even worse to Kaepernick. They kicked him out of the league and stuff and let him back in.
Right. They took his ability to make money.
They took away the beautiful livelihood. Sport that he loved. So to me, there's this historical context that gives life to these things that we see today and gives understanding. And all I want from my kids when I'm explaining this, getting back to your original question, when I'm explaining this to them is I want them to think for themselves. I want them to understand the power of words, the power of actions.
The power of thoughts.
And just think critically and to be their own person. If they want to be like those gentlemen who were open carry and exercising their Second Amendment right, I'll support them. As long as they care and get out there and do it. That's my thing.
Right.
Care, and I guess maybe that's something that I get pissed off about with some of these generations. I just feel like they don't give a fuck.
No, they don't. You're right, because they're entitled.
Yeah.
They feel like they're entitled
And that
to something.
pisses me off.
And it pisses me off too, Adam. Our generation, I think our generation spans what? Mid 80s?
Yeah.
To mid to late 70s.
Yep.
Right? You talked about, how much more can they try? Where we come from, you just keep trying. You keep trying. You don't ever quit. You don't quit until they put you 6 feet under. You're taking a dirt nap.
And that's true. I don't disagree with that.
But, and we were talking about, this generation of young people, right? They don't understand what working, like, maybe they do, maybe they don't. But a lot of them they don't get the idea of, busting your ass every day, sun up to sun down, because they're entitled to it.
But there's no knowledge of self. There's no knowledge of their history. There's no knowledge of, I had this seriously funniest fucking conversation with Dad the other day, yesterday. He let me use a chainsaw against his better judgment. I didn't hurt anybody or myself.
Thank God you didn't hurt yourself.
I know, that's really what we were worried about.
Good Lord. My God.
But we were sitting.
I knew I should have come over and done that for you.
You probably should have. We were sitting on the porch afterwards, and he explained that our relatives, Chris, our great-grandpa, actually fled eastern Kentucky, the hills of eastern Kentucky, because he was bootlegging whiskey. And federal marshals were making their way through the hollers in which we were living. And they had one tank of gas. And he drove straight from fucking eastern Kentucky to Crawford County.
And that's, you know what, though? That's how a lot of people. I mean,
I know.
Look at grandma and grandpa.
On mom's side. Mom's side. Yeah, exactly.
That's how they ended up here. That's how Papa ended up working at
GM. I know. It's
and him and his brother.
It's just there's a lack of knowledge of self. A really good friend of mine who's, and I've mentioned her on the podcast before, who's an attorney down in Alabama. She's never read Alex Haley's The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Probably one of the finest, just in terms of writing, pieces of writing about Malcolm X that's ever been put out there. And it tells the story beautifully, and he was a very imperfect man, not unlike Dr. King, not unlike any of us, quite frankly. But it encompasses those imperfections within the context of this moral giant who decides to be something better coming out of prison, of all places. Mm-hmm. And if you think about how many young people today we have who are incarcerated, who are in prison, many people from that younger generation we're just talking about who are convicted felons, whether it was the opioid epidemic or whatever it happens to be, what better story do they need than someone who has the ability through faith, the Nation of Islam, right? It could be Christianity, Nation of Islam, whatever it happens to be.
Could be, yeah.
But through his faith, he found the strength to be something better. And he found a higher calling. Because whether it's social justice, the practice of law, practice of medicine, when you find something in your life that is bigger than yourself, then you've found something worth dying for. And you've never really lived a day until you live knowing what it is that you have that's worth dying for. George Floyd didn't have to die that day.
No.
But George Floyd's death reminds us all of what is worth dying for. Those people took to the streets Because for how many generations and how many years have they been used as political pawns? How many times have they been co-opted? Right?
Right.
For a photo op. Mm-hmm. How much more do they have to endure? And that woman was absolutely right. We are just fortunate as a country that these people want equality and not revenge. Because the moment that they finally get that knowledge of self, the true knowledge of self, and that they realize that 400 years from the time they were kidnapped from Sierra Leone all over Africa and brought here on slave ships by the thousands, once they realize what their ancestors went through, what their great-grandmothers went through, all those hundreds of years of generations, you might find a generation just pissed off enough. And God help us if we do.
So the question then that to me that needs to be asked, and this is probably pie in the sky, how in the hell do we even, beyond what we've seen in the last couple of months with the protests and the rallies and all this other stuff, how in the hell, where the fuck do we start to change this? Well, because at the end of the day, look, John Lewis has been fighting this fight for what, 50 plus years?
Since he was about 16, 17 years old.
So longer than 50 years.
Yeah.
Dr. King lost his life fighting this fight. Malcolm X lost his life fighting this fight.
Jack and Bobby.
I mean, the list goes on and on, right?
And then all these people.
And then all these other people. So the question bears to ask, where do we even fucking begin, Adam, beyond
if you're
the
asking
protests?
if you're asking my personal opinion,
okay, that's what we're here for.
If you're asking my personal opinion, I have to agree with a commentator, Charlemagne. I think it begins with a promise that was made a whole hell of a long time ago, back by President Lincoln, 40 acres and a mule. I think you start with reparations. It doesn't have to be that. But we need to, I don't call slavery a birth defect in America. I call it a developmental disability because it still hasn't gone anywhere. It's still here. It's still alive. It's still breathing. It's still a part of our everyday fabric. And until we acknowledge, and by we, I mean the institutions that have allowed this horse shit to continue for hundreds of years, until we acknowledge it, until we actively ourselves look in the mirror, and Christ on sale, that is difficult, but we look ourselves in the mirror and we recognize our own prejudice, our own bias, and we start to bind up the wounds between us and between those people of color. And, Chris, we as an institution, being the government, not just acknowledge it, but say, we're sorry. Not only say we're sorry, we cannot repay, we cannot undo what was done to your ancestors. But here's what we can do. And it is something meaningful. I was listening to Seth, what's his name? He's a comedian, Seth Rogen?
Yeah, Seth Rogen.
Is that it?
Yeah.
And he was
it's the only comedian I know is Seth Rogen.
But he was talking about how in Canada, when they're on the land of indigenous people, and he's doing a comedy show, every single time they walk out, and just the most amazing little gesture is made. Folks, before we begin this show, this is not our land. We are currently sitting on the land of indigenous people. Before we begin the comedy show, I want us all to take a moment to respect and acknowledge that we are currently on the land of indigenous people. That is an acknowledgement that we don't make. Our White House was built by slaves. You ever heard of a president, even a president who happened to be black? And I'm very critical of Barack Obama.
I know you are.
But have you ever heard a president stop and say that?
No.
So we have to, as a country, start there.
And it starts with that leadership.
It does, and we certainly don't fucking have it now.
Well, and quite frankly, we've not really had it. I mean,
not with that kind of courage.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We've not really had it since Jack.
And even Jack had to be bullied into it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying, I mean, and even to not be, you have to go back to Lincoln then, to someone who was not bullied into it, who talked about.
He wasn't bullied, Chris. It was just a war.
It was just a war, just a war. Christ. But no, he would always say, "It's time to take my public opinion bath."
Yeah,
because back then they could open the doors to the White House and people could come in and talk directly to the president.
Yep.
Now you got blockades three blocks around the damn White House, and if somebody gets through the first one, he's running to the damn bunker.
Well,
but here's my point.
Or if he's walking to a church, they got to throw flashbangs into a peaceful.
Yeah, exactly.
To make it look tough. Yeah.
But the point is Lincoln did not. Lincoln did what he felt was right.
Yeah, even if it was illegal.
Even if it was illegal, even if it was not popular, Lincoln did what he felt was the right thing. Mm-hmm. And for the greater good.
For his country.
For his country, which was let's call it as it was the greater good.
Yes.
Bigger than him.
Yes.
We didn't see that again. And Jack may have gotten bullied into it, but really we didn't see it again until Jack and then Bobby died on the campaign trail.
Yeah,
and they both fought, Bobby more so probably than Jack.
Jack, yeah.
But that leadership has not been seen since the Kennedy brothers.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
it's unfortunate, but it's true.
We had our first black president. Where was it there?
Well,
I mean, I'm just. You see what I'm saying?
If you want my opinion on that, look, he is by far the most. President Obama was the most articulate.
Incredible.
He was a brilliant writer. Mm-hmm. He was an incredible orator. I believe that was, with all due respect, he's a much more intelligent man than I am, a better lawyer than I am. I give him all the credit in the world, but the fact that he won a Nobel Peace Prize after killing a United States citizen with a drone without due process of law is a completely degrades the Nobel Peace Prize to me.
Right.
That's horseshit to me. When that occurred, it should have been taken from him. I think he made a lot of mistakes, but I think he was so worried about passing the legislation that was important to him that he left his courage at the table to say what needed to be said
to get the job done.
To get the job done for people who had never seen any real movement at that level of government. The people in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, Chris, they whatever Donald Trump does, whatever Bill Clinton, any of them did, the only thing that has ever really affected them in the last noticeable time period has been the '94 crime bill, where crack cocaine was jacked up in the federal sentencing guidelines. That's it. That's the only thing that affected them. Otherwise, what have they gotten? So the people in blue who are there to protect them show up and shove their knee on somebody's neck, and we expect them to do what? Oh, that's really sad. Sorry to hear about it. They took to the streets, and we would hope that they would be peaceful. But here's the thing. Peaceful has not gotten them where they needed to go.
Well, I hate to say it, but non-peaceful is not going to get them there any faster. I truly believe that.
I hope you are right, and I hope that something emerges from this tragedy. Like I love that picture in the former NBA player Stephen A. Jackson has George Floyd's daughter on his shoulders, and she's saying, "My daddy changed the world. My daddy changed the world," which just breaks your heart. But I hope that a leader emerges from this tragedy, because in this, if you again,
I hate to say this,
I love history, but in this country, it has taken the greatest tragedies, the most god-awful tragedies, to bring us our greatest moments.
I'm going to say this, and again, this is from my limited knowledge of what we're seeing right now. Okay.
Yeah.
On the national scene, if you tell me that I truly don't believe that there's someone with the leadership capability. They have the leadership capabilities. The question, it's not about whether or not you can lead people. It's about, do you have the balls? That's what it boils down to. Do you have the fucking stones to stand up and say, I don't care if you love me or hate me, I'm going to do the right thing. And that's what it boils down to me. And there's nobody out there that has those balls.
That's what I loved about Democratic candidate Kamala Harris. Former prosecutor, so naturally we're born enemies, but she has, if you listen to her interviews right now, she has the balls. Like, she will stand up to interview. She is an incredibly brilliant woman. She is quick-witted. She is she's presidential. And the manner in which she carries herself, the way she speaks, I think she would make one hell of a president, hopefully someday soon. And it is my hope that she kind of rises out of this, because I see that potential in her. And I know I'm a nobody. I'm in Crawford County, Ohio, but I see that in her. Spending the better part of my 20s and early 30s studying that shit.
Right.
I see that in her that ability.
But let's face it, Adam. Let's talk through this. Did I vote Republican? Yes, I did. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do I see the kind of leader that's needed to come out of that needs to emerge from this situation in the Republican Party? No. Not the one they're going to nominate.
I know.
Okay. And we all know who's going to get nominated.
Absolutely.
On the Democratic side of things, we all know who's coming out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We all know who's coming out of there. Uncle Joe.
Yep.
Neither of those men have the balls.
No.
And so here's what's going to happen. Regardless of who we put in office in that leadership role, we're not going to see any systemic change that's going to be led by the White House.
But that goes exactly to what Howard Zinn, a writer, said. That every great change in this country, it never started in the White House or in the Capitol building. It started in the streets outside the Capitol building and outside the White House. Every great piece of legislation, the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, back to Reconstruction, it took protest and unrest for the people in power to fucking stand up and take notice.
But those people, here's my point, Adam. Those people in power are going to do what makes them popular. They're going to do what makes them popular with the majority.
That's true.
Or with their party.
That's
and
true.
The problem is, and see, this is where, and again, are either one of us presidential? Fuck, no, we're not.
No, not even a little bit.
Right? But we were brought up that what is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right.
Yeah.
It's the way our parents raised us.
That's right.
Unfortunately, when you get, I don't care if you're in the White House, in the Capitol, you get to a certain extent, even at the state level.
Oh, absolutely. I think to a greater extent at the state level.
You forget that.
Oh, sure.
Even if you were raised that way, you forget that, because what are you most worried about?
Getting reelected.
Getting reelected. And if someone would just come along that says, look, give me 4 years. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not always going to be popular.
Right.
Okay? You're not always going to agree with me.
Right.
But you got to understand, I'm going to do the right thing.
The problem that you have there, Chris, is even if you have one person standing up and saying that, we're a democracy built in such a way that you need a majority of people.
Talk to me about the ripple of hope again.
I understand that. I understand that, Bobby. I get it.
Just remind me of that.
But it really is a matter of, it goes back exactly to what you said. They want to do what is popular, so we being us,
the populace,
the people have to decide that what is right is popular. The people have to decide that we are prepared to take responsibility for the torture and the hell that we wrought on an innocent people for hundreds of years. That we are willing to acknowledge it, that we are willing to say, I'm willing to give to try and make, I know I can never make it right, but I'm willing to try. Yeah, I'm
trying to make it better.
And if this camera's on.
This camera is on.
I am talking about reparations. We have to have reparations for slavery if we're ever going to move on in this country. Thank you.
Okay, time out. Just hear me out.
Yes.
So, the circus monkey sitting here, right? Because it was 2 beers, 2 lawyers, and a circus monkey when we first did this.
Very true.
So, explain, because you may have some people listening to this or watching this who don't understand what you mean when you say reparations.
It goes back to what I was talking about earlier. When slavery ended, Lincoln promised every slave 40 acres and a mule.
So that's
as
what
reparations for slavery. Basically, as we're sorry, and this is what we're going to give you to get a start.
Okay.
To get an even start.
That's all I wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
So, yes, I'm talking about reparations. So I'm sorry. No, I'm not even fucking sorry. We have to acknowledge it first. First, we have to see that white privilege is absolutely real, like you and I have talked about. We acknowledge.
My last personal podcast, I said I am a white man and I am privileged, and I have to admit it in order for me to be able to try to make a change in my world.
That's right. But I think there are too many people who aren't willing to look themselves in the mirror.
No, because it's scary as fuck to look at yourself in the mirror.
And that's their fault, and that's their problem. But what it does ultimately to the collective is it holds the collective back.
Yeah. When you don't hold yourself accountable,
it holds the collective
back. It holds the collective back. So I think...
And I've even had to learn that on a very personal level.
Oh, you're not alone there. We both have.
My mistakes that I've made personally, I fully acknowledge those now, and we could have a talk about those, but... I have to acknowledge those mistakes in order for me to be able to move forward for my kids, my firm, my family, and learn from them and make amends, maybe not to people,
but with your past,
but with myself,
yeah,
and reconcile the person I want to be with the person I am. And decide, and I think if you're not willing to do this kind of self-analysis, then I'm sorry, you're a piece of shit.
I agreed.
Shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. If you are not willing to do that kind of analysis and say, here is the person I am, bluntly honest, here is the person I want to be, and find a way to get from
A to B.
A to B.
The problem, Adam, with that, and we few are a rare breed that aren't afraid to look in the mirror, or that are afraid to look in the mirror but kick fear in the nuts and say we have to do it because there's something greater than us. And it's not when I say there's something greater than us, Adam, I'm not even talking about the societal issues that we're facing.
I know
what I'm talking about is our children.
Right.
And our children's children.
Right.
And good Lord willing, you and I get to be like Mama and Papa.
And see
great grandkids.
Right.
Right? So to me, that's where you've got, don't look at yourself in the mirror and say, I need to change me to change the world. No. Hold on.
I'm listening.
You need to change you to impact your corner, your little space of the world, right?
So I'm agreeing with that wholeheartedly, because each person does that, then the greater good.
But the problem is you don't have enough people who not only understand that concept, number one, but number two, they don't have the balls to look fear in the face and say,
So what is the voice that forces that? Because this is democracy. We are not in Russia.
I can't make people do it. It's inside work.
What I'm saying is, what wakes up?
Rioting and looting pisses me off. It doesn't wake me up. What woke me up was walking in that protest.
Yeah.
Okay?
So something about this George Floyd experience, this movement, has woken you up, right?
Yes.
Something about the George Floyd movement woke me up. So there has been something about this movement that has woken up two people who come from completely different political ideologies.
Couldn't be further apart. Right.
By any stretch. The rioting and the looting, to me, is the sound, it is the screams of the people who have been experiencing this how many George Floyds were rioting that just didn't happen to die? That had been the subject of police brutality every fucking day of their lives. And they see this man die in the street with less dignity than a dog. And they'd say, this is my experience. Fuck you. Fuck the institution that we've allowed to flourish. Fuck this. We own nothing. I mean, the president, in courting black votes, made a wonderful speech about what do you have to lose? Your schools are crap. Your children are unemployed at a rate of 58%. What do you have to lose? Well, Mr. President, what the fuck did they have to lose? They didn't own shit in those neighborhoods, so they lit them the fuck on fire. That's what happens when you oppress people. That's what happens when people who have been oppressed for 400 fucking years finally say, you know what? I think I've had enough. And for those people who thought, oh shit, it was just going to happen over a weekend.
This isn't it.
It's not over. No. It's not over.
Out of all this, the thing I think for me I want people to understand is if we're going to change the world, if we are going to change our society, right?
Yeah.
We all have to have that moment of awakening.
Absolutely.
Okay? And we all have to be willing to stand before the man or the woman. Mm-hmm. Okay? Not your boyfriend or girlfriend or your husband or your wife or whatever that may look like, right?
Yeah.
But the one staring back at us in the mirror.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay? And we all have to be, and again, we've said it here tonight, and I've said it before, right? Yes, I am a white man. I am privileged. I know that. But because of that, what can I do to help right the wrong?
Correct.
Or what can I do to just make it better? Because I can never right the wrong that was done for 400 years.
No.
I can't change that.
No.
Okay?
But you can support reparations.
I can support reparations, you're right. But here's my point with this, though. Maybe we had ancestors that owned slaves. I don't know. I've not done that genealogy, right?
I have. There's no record of on Dad's side specifically. I haven't done Mom's, but on Dad's side, there's no record. We were pretty much just poor. Yep, poor farmers. And bootleggers, evidently.
But hey, explains a lot. Anyway,
that's right.
But even for those people whose families did own slaves.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess I look at it, have a little bit of grace with those people because they're not their ancestors.
I'm not saying that.
I know you're not, but I'm not saying this to you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this to you. I'm speaking more generally, right?
Sure.
Just like you looked in this camera and you talk,
Yeah.
I'm speaking very generally. Have some grace with people who maybe did own slaves, whose families did own slaves.
Sure.
That was 200, 300 years
We
ago.
don't have to be our fathers. We don't have to be our grandfathers, great-grandfathers.
Right.
And
we have
generations,
to be,
of course.
We have to be us.
Yes.
And I would like to think that us, as a, and I'm wrong about this, This is pie. I guess it's pie in the sky thinking because it's been fucking proven in the last couple of months that we didn't learn anything from 50, 60 years ago.
Chris,
because we're fighting the same fucking fight.
We did not, and I guess if we're going to leave this conversation on anything, the point.
Sorry,
you're right. We've learned next to nothing because we don't know ourselves
as a society,
and we don't understand our history, and we don't know ourselves. And until we have knowledge of self, we can't have knowledge of anything else. But to me, it goes back to John Quincy Adams. He was like 80-something years old, and he represented the Amistad slaves who rose up against, they were in a slave ship, and they mutinied and slaughtered all but two of their captors.
True.
And the boat ended up sailing to, I believe it was Connecticut or Massachusetts, I can't remember which. But they were arrested and they were tried, and the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. It's part of a movie with Matthew McConaughey. But one of the neatest things, I have a book of John Quincy Adams' writings, and his closing argument to the U.S. Supreme Court in that case is in there. And he is basically 40, 50 years before, it was 1839, so 20 years before the Civil War. He challenges the South and says there are those who believe that this will be the powder keg that sparks civil war in this country. And if it is, let it come. And let it be the last great battle of the American Revolution. And here's the thing. There is institutionalized racism in this country, and we absolutely have to fight it. How we fight it is up for debate, and we've debated it ad nauseum tonight.
Yeah, we have.
But if this is the powder keg that sparks the battle, then let it be the last great battle of the American Revolution and bring equality and not revenge. Just what that woman talked about. But what the fuck do I know?
I don't know shit. Adam, it was I don't know what you thought. I thought it was a good conversation.
It always, yeah.
I mean, especially just because we are, and I think Mom said it best, we agree on a lot, or we disagree on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
We really do.
For sure.
But if there's one thing we agree on, it's that everybody deserves to be treated equally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
We believe in fundamental fairness.
We believe in fundamental fairness. We believe in equality for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so I think that, I don't know. I think we as fathers can make even the tiniest little ripple.
Yeah, absolutely.
By teaching our kids.
It goes back to Bobby Kennedy.
It goes back to Bobby.
Yep.
But even and this is why I didn't run for mayor back in 2013, 12,
sure.
whatever, because I made the conscious choice that if I want to make a difference in my community, a true difference in my community, I can have a greater impact by raising good kids who become great adults.
You're right.
Versus sitting in an office, kissing ass, trying to get votes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I can have a greater impact by making sure my kids are just damn good human beings and that they treat, I would love to have Miranda sitting in this conversation with us.
Sure.
And get her perspective. I think it would be interesting as hell.
I think we should invite her in for a conversation. Bring Tawny and her in. I think it'd be.
I think that would be five of us in here.
Yeah, I think it'd be
it would be interesting to see
conversation.
I think it'd be interesting to see how Miranda reacted to some of the things.
I'd do that in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Because she is so mature. But if I do nothing else in my life right,
let's hope we do that. Let's
hope we at least raise our children.
Oh, for sure.
To understand the difference between right and wrong. And be willing to stand up for those who may not be able to have a voice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or who may have a voice but need that extra, I don't want to say punch, but that extra support.
Well, they just need somebody on, they need someone on whose shoulders they can stand or sit and be heard.
Yeah. And let's hope that our kids
have the broad shoulders
that
to be able have the broad, and I don't mean that physically. I mean that both physically and spiritually, quite frankly.
Yeah. It's been fun, dude.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Hey, listen. If you're watching this, I'm gonna look at this camera. If you watch this, you liked it, share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your feedback. If you think we're off base, tell us. If you think that I'm totally full of shit or Adam's totally full of shit, we want to hear it. Whatever the case may be, let us know your thoughts. Throw some questions at us. I think it'd be interesting one night. Maybe what we do one night, Adam, is we take over the Eyer Stone Limited Facebook page and we actually do a live Q&A that has nothing to do with the law.
That'd be fine. That'd be fine. I mean, you got to pull it up.
I've got the technology to be able to do it. You just got to get me access to the page.
That's fine. As long as they're not legal questions, because we're not going to give out legal
questions.
That's
a big thing. We can't do legal questions, but you've got a knowledge. You and Tani both have a knowledge that extends well beyond.
Yeah, and if nothing else, we can start good discussions.
Absolutely, and to me, I think that's the direction I want to take this.
Sure.
Is we start a conversation, and you and Tani and I will talk about this. When we decide to do the first live video, what's our topic going to be?
Yeah.
Right? And
it has to have more structure than like the free flow that you and
I and we can we'll come up with a topic and I'll kind of serve as the moderator asking questions of each of you, and hopefully the questions and the responses that you guys give will have an audience, and then they'll come back and they'll have questions based upon your responses.
Sure.
To questions.
That'd be cool.
So
I'd love to do that.
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
It
would be very different.
Oh yeah, it'd be a completely different experience.
But I think in the end,
it'll meet the goal that we're ultimately trying to do, which is engage the community and get the community involved in discussions that are meaningful, not just about, in fact, as far away from law as we can get,
right?
But just social justice and things that are personal to them. And with Tani, with the patients' rights, Medicare and Medicaid, and all those things. The planning for life and the planning for the end of it and the acknowledgement of those things.
And for you, social justice.
Absolutely.
That's been your.
It's been the drum that I've beaten for a long time.
20 plus years.
Yes.
So look for that coming your way. And thanks for watching and listening.
Absolutely. Thank you.